But like, here's my question, does it feel like it's worth this question?
No.
I agree with that. I think going forward, I'm still trying to make. I think what's gonna be moving to like a committee week, not committee weeks, but maybe you know.
Alright, hopefully that's working. Alright, we good?
Like that.
They're confusing. I have it right.
I have
Alright, we're good now.
like a tennis policy,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bylaw it, so it's all gonna be figured out.
Thank you.
I invited you. Now,
Thank you. So before each position, the incumbent member gives a little overview of the position for up to 4 minutes. I will keep it less than that because I know we got a lot to cover and had these tech difficulties, but I'll start off with a quote from the top of the speaker transition document, which dates back nearly 15 years. It says, "Welcome to the speakership. If you still have time to get out of it, do it. If not, please read below. Don't fuck up too much." So that is the wise words that we've had at the top of our transition document for the last 15 years. But a quick overview of the role and responsibilities of the speaker. Obviously, to chair the meetings, make sure that they are run in an efficient and fair manner, to facilitate all UA internal business and all the internal functions of the body, coordinate with the committees and oversee the cabinet, and serve as an ex officio member of all UA committees. Also to educate and nurture all UA members, inclusive of associate members, manage the associate membership process, and to assist the president in the execution of the agenda. Also, of course, keeping our documents up to date, our wonderful bylaws, which we've amended a few times this year. Our constitution hasn't been amended since 2009, but we'll see if anything happens this coming year, and to encourage further involvement in UA. A little fun piece, if Mo and Musab sadly are no longer in the position at some point, if they get impeached or they step down, then the speaker will serve as the president pro tempore for a little bit. So, y'all that are running for speaker, you could be president for a little bit. Hopefully we don't get into that scenario. Some other important aspects of the role, you oversee, sort of some of the impeachment stuff along with Katie Bonner, appoint the AMs. You're on the Philadelphia Student Government Assembly, which is an exciting opportunity to engage with other student government branches across Philadelphia, manage the external seat process and liaise with the other divisions across the school. Also oversee the speaker pro tempore, who manages the internal budget during the budget meetings, and the legal services coordinator as well. To sort of sum it all up, you're managing the internal operations, and really the most important thing is making sure the meetings are run efficiently, fairly, and in a productive manner, making sure that we are being held to our bylaws, doing things the proper way, but all done so in a fair manner, being a neutral body to ensure that we can come together and debate the important topics that we discuss every day. So now there are 10 minutes for Q&A. For any questions about the speaker position, we don't have to do 10 minutes of Q&A, but if anyone has any questions about the speaker position. Well, I mean, I think you get a unique perspective being at the front of the room. You get to see everyone's faces, see how engaged everyone always is. Never looking at the laptops or anything like we are right now. But you get to see people thinking through things, and sort of the emotions. I know sometimes I give off some emotions in the front of the room, which you shouldn't necessarily do as the speaker. But I think you get a good perspective of the entire room, and that'll certainly be something I miss, seeing everyone's wonderful faces and interacting with them. So,
Anything that you wish you did as speaker that you'd recommend the next speaker do?
I think there's always room for growth, and I think every year there's stuff that can be done better. I think there are always going to be decisions that not everyone's going to agree with. I think being confident in the decision that you make, especially when you're in tense meetings. I think doing more with our external partners as well, and continuing to build up the social aspects of the UA, which is going to be even more challenging without the funding. But I think there's always room to grow, and I think whoever is the next speaker will have a lot of ways to continue to improve the position.
What do you think makes a good speaker?
I think someone, again, that who has a good understanding of our procedures, good understanding of our bylaws, someone that's able to, you know, take your personal opinions out as much as you can, be the sort of neutral body to oversee the meetings, and, you know, make sure that things are run fairly, that everyone is treated with respect, and treated the same regardless of personal opinions or personal views, and generally, you know, serve as that sort of neutral body for the entire assembly. Any other questions?
What's your favorite bylaw and why?
I would say actually the bylaw, which I've kind of paraphrased, but it's in the section about the speakership. And it says to like education and nurturing the new members. I think that's a very nice way to put it, that, you know, we're bringing on these new folks at the start of the year, not just educating them, but nurturing them and bringing them into the UA family. Any other questions?
That's the greatest challenge you face as speaker in this past session.
Uh,
And said, how would you have maybe done better, you know, changed the way you do?
Yeah, I think it's when you're under pressure, sitting up here, especially like the budget meetings or any super tense debates that we have when there's complex, you know, whether it's bylaw procedure or Robert's rules, and you have to make a decision on the spot. Everyone's looking at you. There are people that have their own opinion of how things should be run. So I think, again, that's just being confident and making sure you understand everything, and seeking from them with your decision. Any other questions?
What are you the most proud of in terms of the work?
I mean, I honestly, I know there have been mixed opinions on this, but we brought on a very large amount of AMs this year, and I think if you look at the membership of the UA right now and see some of the most engaged members, like almost all of them were associate members this year, including the people that ran to be elected members, and that, you know, was a somewhat contentious decision to bring on that many people. We still did reject like 20 people. There's this notion that we just brought everybody in. There was a lot of people that applied. We brought on a lot of new people, but I think I've been very pleased to see that those members that we brought on have been some of the most engaged and most committed members of the undergraduate assembly. No.
Like 6 minutes left.
Oh, but we could probably keep moving, but I really appreciate it. It's been a true honor to serve. I will definitely still be involved, and best of luck to whoever holds this position next. I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. Thank you.
Motion to allow Q&A.
Second.
Oh, I can't make motions.
You can.
Can I?
You can go to it.
Motion
Motion
to
to allow
allow
Q&A.
Second.
Yeah.
We allow
Who's saying-
Q&A.
Who's playing the role of speaker this week?
Let me.
Yeah.
We allow Q&A.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're gonna have Mo next.
Or we'll do for before each one, like.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
now we're doing nominations. Oh, that's what you were
Yeah, yeah,
asking. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm opening the floor for nominations now for speaker.
I nominate Julie Oxler.
What?
I nominate Rafa.
You accept the nomination?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I accept.
I accept. Okay, thanks. Is that it? Yes.
I nominate Andrew Roberts.
I accept.
Okay. Is there any more nominations? Okay, so the way that we're gonna do this, I'm assuming you guys know, is that for speaker, you guys each have 5 minutes. We're gonna go in the order of the nominations. And then each of you guys will have, all of you guys in total will have 20 minutes of questions from like elected members, and then 20 minutes of questions from the general public. I know we kind of discussed if we wanted to let elected members go into the general public. Do we still want to do that, or is it just like a gauge? Okay, perfect. Okay. And then each candidate will have 1 minute to answer their questions, and then the first candidate that responded will have 30 seconds to respond. Julia, were you the first one nominated?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
Andrew and Robert just said that.
We stand.
Oh yeah, you guys need to step out.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Oxler, and I'm running to be your speaker for the 54th session. How do Penn students spend their Sunday nights? Do they catch up on homework before the week starts? Do they hang out with their friends, catch up on their favorite show? For me, Sundays have meant being here with all of you. When I walk into GBM every Sunday night, whether as a new student representative or the secretary of the assembly, the Sunday scaries instantly fade away. I could not be more honored and excited to have spent and continue to spend every Sunday with you, the body of the undergraduate assembly. I want to be speaker because I will integrate exec experience with a love for the body to GBM, community, and logistics. GBM, the UA body is the heart of this organization, and GBM is what keeps it beating. As the speaker of the assembly, I will set a rhythm for GBM that prioritizes thoroughness, efficiency, and community. The job of an assembly is to assemble. I've been here for every GBM of this session and nearly every one of the last, and took minutes on everything that was said. I know that we discuss important matters in this room, sometimes on the third floor. As speaker, I will make sure we address these matters meaningfully while also ensuring that everyone is heard. I will create speaker lists and make sure people don't go into other people's time. I will move in an orderly, efficient fashion. I know the bylaws and Robert's rules, as well as the format, because I've set the agenda for every GBM of this session. Additionally, GBMs will prioritize major updates and discussions, trying to keep meetings under 2 hours. If I am elected speaker immediately following this meeting, I will send out a poll asking for the body's preferences for where GBM should be. These meetings should feel like a conversation. We're all a team and a family and working together to make students' lives better. I want to hear your opinions on a space that's best to facilitate them. 2, community. Community does not end at GBM. The UA is the best community on campus, and I want to keep it that way. The speaker handles UA Retreat. Not only did I have a blast at this past year's, I helped to plan it. Now that we have limited funds, experience planning retreat is more important than ever. Last session, I managed retreat payments, helped to organize logistics and bonding games, and most importantly, bought the food and snacks. This year, I will do all this again and use my local Philly knowledge to help us find the best location for retreat. Besides retreat, I want to continue hosting socials to get to know you all more and find out how to make your voice better heard. This past year, I ran Mu on Valentine's for the 2nd year in a row, and I plan to do it again. I also hope to throw more socials like a homecoming brunch to facilitate connections with alumni. I also hope to continue coffee dates, chats. My UA record shows that I'm amazing at this. I also want to host weekly dinners for the body. Lastly, I'm going to start an intramural sports league between the committees. Can't wait for AI versus DHT. 3, logistics. The speaker handles everything that involves your experience of being a UA member. I know there's a steep learning curve for new members. I will drastically expand education this session. Last session, I made the education materials for the preceptorial, many of which appeared in our Education Week slides. This session, I will add a new member scavenger hunt where different clues lead them to different offices we work with on campus. As speaker, I will encourage committee directors to continue this education and help their members with a pathway for projects. I'm no stranger to project work myself. I did the SETLI advisory board and airport shuttles this year, including negotiations with business services, and I understand that collaborating with others is what brings success. So I will continue to push a committee model where UA members work together. This past session, I helped with merge payments and internal finances, key jobs of the speaker. I also help members of my committee attain their external seats. I understand the logistical jobs of the speaker and when they have to be done. I also understand what it means to be a member of exec. We handle a lot of tough decisions. I believe that I bring a different perspective to exec, and I've never been afraid to advocate for what I believe in, even if others disagree. I have big ideas for next session, and I know exec will too. I would love to see resolutions relating to more days off, especially election day, and more collaboration between exec and 7B, starting with the website. It's crazy to me that I'm halfway done with my time at Penn. In reflecting how I've spent this time, I'm filled with immense gratitude that I've gotten to be part of the UA. However Penn students spend their Sundays, I'm so honored and excited to spend every Sunday night of the 54th session making Penn the place we want to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you get Rafa? Yeah.
How do you choosing who's speaking?
Huh? It's based on their nomination order.
Hi. Hey. I can wear them.
Just let me know if you're ready.
All right. Can everyone see me? Okay, great. All right, I'm ready. Fall of 2024. A confused, just landed in the US Saudi freshman decides to join the undergraduate assembly. Little did I know that 2 years later, I can say that I worked on projects I care about. I formed community. I really learned the UA, how to navigate it, and felt very fulfilled. This year, however, I realized I didn't want to stop there. I'm running to be your speaker because I want to actively shape the UA. I want to give back and make sure that every member has just an amazing, if not better experience I was so lucky to have. I think the UA has a lot of potential, so much further to go, and I want to be a part of getting it there. But first and foremost, I think we have to acknowledge that the speaker has a lot of responsibilities, so I do want to be very serious on why I think I could excel in this role. In terms of the clerical, technical work, ask anyone around me, I am a very, very organized person. I love my GCals, my to-do list, my Apple reminders. Just this session alone, I was simultaneously managing the mentorship program, the legal services team, the transit improvement project, and sitting on external seats of iStar and Transit Advisory Board. So when I say that I can manage multiple responsibilities at once, I mean it. In terms of the internal work as well, legal services taught me a lot. Managing a very active inbox with around a 25% budget cut while keeping the service quality, just to say, I can manage internal parts. As for the forward-facing aspect, the brunt of that is the general body meetings. I will say something I do love a lot is the increased engagement we saw this session, and I only want to see that grow. But the key here isn't just more engagement, it's efficiency. Making sure that that engagement is being directed towards what really matters. So as opposed to spending 20 minutes working on pre-agenda questions, we can use that to debate resolutions, amendments, project discussions, saving time where we can and putting in energy where we should. I will also say I have experience managing a room. This session, UA was leading the international students table, so I was managing the Friday meetings. Perhaps my biggest achievement, however, is when De Silva so graciously asked me to lead a DHT meeting. And guys, let me say this. If I was able to manage a meeting of the Wild West of dining, housing, and transit, please rest assured I can handle the undergraduate assembly. Beyond programming, I will say something that really matters to me personally is that I'm not just a speaker, but also a listener. If I'm representing the assembly, I want to make sure I am representing every single member of the assembly. So whether that's attending at least one meeting per committee in a session or having an anonymous feedback form always there, although it is my duty as speaker to be fair and just between members, I also want to be approachable. I think this session has done a wonderful job closing that gap between exec and cab in the body. I only want to take that further by making sure all members feel integrated and in the loop. In terms of socials, which is very important, I think you have to acknowledge that all our internal budget got cut, but social budget does not equal social assembly. If you look at past sessions, we might have had more budget, but it was not as social as this. I think the key here is focusing on accessibility. We can have a lot of low-cost systemized socials, potlucks, picnics, the weather is beautiful, study dates, office hangouts, making sure that it's accessible, because we also have to remember that the same financial aid for students comes from that budget that was slashed. Last but not least, bylaws. I don't know if you had the chance to look through them. I have. They're very messy. They're quite outdated and sometimes just not applicable. Something that will be very important to me as speaker is working on those. So maybe proposing something similar to what Leo Solga did with the bylaw clearing package, maybe having working groups working on the bylaws. If I'm representing the bylaws, I want to make sure they're understandable. The bottom line here is I've spent 2 years understanding the assembly. I want to spend the next one serving it. I want to make sure every member in this room and who will be in this room is heard, and that we can all work towards building an undergraduate assembly we can be proud of. Thank you.
Oh.
Let me know when you're ready.
All right,
Okay, perfect. Starting now.
hopefully I get as much clapping, that was a lot of clapping. All right. Today I'm going to give a little bit of a speech about 3 things that my father has taught me. I'm gonna relate them all back to why I'm running, so that it kind of makes a little bit of sense. The first thing that he taught me was to be transparent and reliable. And somebody who is, I don't like the word blunt, but a little bit blunt sometimes. I've been a part of these environments before. Does anyone know what Key Club is? Just by raise of hands. Okay. It was basically a service organization, and I was on the state board. So I was basically sitting in the same kind of environment, doing very similar tasks, and that's why I wanted to be a part of UA in the first place. But to be completely transparent with you, 99% of the reason that I'm standing here today is because I want to introduce myself. I'm new to this, obviously. Some of you were on this board last semester. Some of you have been on it for years. I want to make an introduction, and I want to show you that I'm willing to actually put in the work here. I'm not here to just mess around. I'm not here to just play on my computer, although, maybe I'll do that at times, but I'm actually here to make a difference. I'm actually here to help the school, and I'm trying to show that. The other 1% is that if hypothetically Mo and Musab, something happens, I would love to be president, like today. That would be sick. But in all reality, the second thing that my father has also taught me was scrutiny. I think that this position is one in which you're overseeing a lot of people doing a lot of work. And the one value that he always taught me, which was usually taught at the dinner table when he would correct my grammar when I was talking about what I wanted to eat. Simple things like that always used to annoy me. It'd be so annoying when it'd be like there versus there, when I forget a comma in my text, or I'd be texting him all about my day. The other day I was texting him about something that happened in class. And I was going on and on ranting about how terrible this event was. And I was like having an issue with the person. And his response was there. It was THEIR, correcting my message. And that was his entire response. But it really brings light to how important in these environments it is to actually look over your work. So whatever role I actually end up pursuing, whatever it is that I look to pursue with this committee, hopefully, which is very involved, I will use this process of actually caring about the details of my work. The last thing that my father taught me was a bit about sports. Do any of you know who Mariano Rivera was? Just by raise of hands. Okay, thank you. Just one. Mariano Rivera was the greatest closer in the history of baseball. Does anyone know what a closer is in baseball? All right, she's just really tapped in. Basically, a closer is the guy who comes in at the end of the game when you're up a few runs and he closes it out. He makes sure that you win the game. Mariano Rivera had the most amount of saves, which is like the best statistic in history, but he also had the most amount of blown saves. So whenever I'm going through a tough time or I'm having some difficulties in my life, my father will sit me down and he'll say, be like Mariano. And what he means by this is that in the face of pressure, when you're talking with administration, when you're talking with President Jameson, when you're facing administration, when you're facing dismay of public belief, you're unfazed by this pressure. You see, Mariano Rivera had the most amount of blown saves, but he is still considered the greatest closer in baseball. So I hope today that I can show you that I'm willing to be that Mariano, unfazed by the pressure of organizations, unfazed by the pressure of administration, and actually make an effort to show you that I want to be here. That's all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Huh? Sorry.
TV and.
Oh, you want to move the TV? Okay. Okay. What?
Remove.
Very good.
For a lot of status.
Yeah. Oh, wait. That's all. I said thank you. You know what?
Nice to meet
Okay.
Yeah, so, this up.
It's gonna be this. I think.
Hello, guys.
Hey, guys.
Okay, so we're gonna move into 20 minutes of Q and A just for the members. We're gonna start with Julia answering. She'll have a minute. We'll go down the line, answer, minute, and then she'll have a 30 seconds to reply. So just raise your hand. Bear with me if I'm pronouncing your names wrong incorrectly. That's completely fine, but you can just raise your name cards. Okay, we're gonna start right now.
Hi, I'm Pablo. How will each one of y'all ensure that people are engaged during meetings? Like people don't go on their phone, they don't try to go on their computer to do homework, answer messages. How do you guys make sure everyone's engaged within the allotted time?
Yeah, definitely something that I think a lot of speakers struggle with. I think a lot of this depends on the sort of location of the meeting. I think this year we opted for Huntsman and we did have a no laptop policy, which I think actually makes meetings go faster because if everyone's not on their laptops, like everyone's paying attention, everyone's engaged. But I thought the wonderful thing about other locations potentially where you don't have these like tables where it feels like, sorry for, if bringing in the classics major in me, but the gladiators going out to fight here, I feel like, you feel like a little bit, it's like a little bit easier to not have laptops out and make it feel more like a conversation rather than making it feel like we're having a debate or like this is a work time, which it's not. It's for us all to talk about.
Yes.
Great, so that's a great question. I think it touches on two aspects, the engagement and the tech policy. So first on touching on engagement, I think the thing is we can't manufacture that, but we can provide a way to encourage that. I think one of those ways is by being back member of the week or project spotlight, making members feel like what they're doing actually has tangible impact is big and being appreciated. I think that's gonna draw in a lot more focus in meetings. In terms of tech policy, I do think it is a lot better when you don't have tech, but I do understand a lot of times there are extraneous situations. So maybe having like just similar to what we have right now, like a form. If you really need to use it, you can use it. You have to just let me know. But again, I think it's a lot better when we don't have tech. The thing is with location, I do like the Huntsman room just because of how better recording is, but I definitely might be open to change locations similar to what Billy mentioned, but I think that's like
Yeah, I don't think a tech policy would work at all. Me personally, like when I'm in class, I think if there's a tech policy, my high school actually implemented one late my senior year. And when they did this, people actually started paying less attention. Now, obviously, it does play a role. The technology does absolutely play a role, and that is the main distraction. But when you take that away, people also are just dazing off into space. They're thinking about other things, especially when meetings last for 4 or 5 hours. I think the only way to actually improve attention is to improve the quality of the meeting, improve the people who are speak with a little bit more confidence. I think having a more engaging session. If you want to tangibly do this, I mean, I can tell you one way you literally do this is by forcing people to listen. It's like when you have to pay attention in class, there's a question you've got to answer. You have to pay attention or you can't answer that question. Now I don't know exactly how we would do this. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but something like that.
Yeah, I think just to respond to that, I think also like the way that we've started moving for GBMs or making them more discussion focused is also really amazing. When we talk about these big issues like ICE or the club sports resolution, and we have everyone engaging and everyone talking. Like think about budget, where everyone was part of it because it was so important. Moving to making GBMs more concise and big focus on big updates and big issues that really have these humongous role in the student body is really, really important. And I think that gets everyone involved, everyone engaged, and everyone talking, because we're all here to help students.
Sorry, just to clarify, we have 1 minute, like, is it per session or?
Yeah.
And then like
20 minutes overall.
versus the minute just so like you'll have 30
Yeah.
seconds to respond.
Yes.
Oh, wait, sorry, but it's the same question.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a safe.
So a person will
Sorry,
ask
I'm
the
so
question,
sorry.
no, you're okay, I can
I was
explain
gonna
it better,
ask
100%. Okay, so a person will ask the question, let me actually pause this. Person will ask the question, you'll have a minute to respond, each of you, and then the first person who answered the question will have 30 seconds to respond. So I'm just going down the line right now, and that will be per question.
The same question.
Yes,
Okay.
and then that'll be per question, and then you guys have 20 minutes overall for this part.
On the order, are we alternating the?
Yes, like she's gonna start right now. Okay,
You don't really know.
Okay.
It's a new question.
yeah, Alexa.
So as you guys know, like the speaker role is kind of like maintaining order during GBM and making sure it runs smoothly. But at times, like during budget season, things can get very tense. And so being able to handle that and making sure the meetings are smooth is really important. So I'm curious to know like a time that you handled a very high pressure, tense environment, how you would navigate that as speaker.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a very valid concern. I'll touch on the role that UAE played this semester with ISTAR. So that's International Students Table for Advocacy and Relations. As some of you might know, these are a very tense time for international students. So a lot of the discussions in those meetings are about, ICE and just people being confused. So one of the meetings, we had this very tense situation where graduate students was feeling there were a lot of tension going on with the graduate assembly with ISSS and how we're managing ICE. I think because UA was leading that, we were able to have a lot more comprehensive discussion by giving each person a time to speak and kind of just facilitating dialogue. Because at the end of the day, with a speaker, you can't necessarily force people to say something, but you can make sure that dialogue is happening in a very smooth and very respectful way. So whether that's, translating what's being said in a more legible way to an individual, or making sure that there's specific time allocated for people to speak. And I think that's definitely key.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I actually answered.
Sure, just curious to know about a time when you navigated like a high pressure, a tense environment and how you could apply that as speaker.
Sure. So I'll give it actually, I guess, a more related example. When I was class president in high school, we would have these like town hall meetings and we would do it quarterly. So it'd be after each quarter, whatever they called it. And I would be asked to speak in front of the entire crowd about whatever events were going on or all the updates that we had, which was usually like a few slides. And they would ask me to talk a little longer just to take up some time, make sure we filled the whole time. And almost every single time when the kids got up to speak, I mean, we were kids at this time. So, I was a 16, 17-year-old kid with like a bunch of other people on board with me. I would go up to speak and they would just be talking. Everybody was talking. And it was impossible to kind of get around this. But what actually ends up making the difference of people listening to you is number one, obviously authority. If you have connection to an authoritative figure or you are one yourself, people will actually listen to you. So what I did in this situation as a non-authoritative figure was get one to speak for me and settle them down. Sorry.
Julia.
Yeah, the example I'm actually gonna use is from UA exec this year. Right after budget, I think there were, inconsistencies revealed in the meeting or differences of opinion that were revealed in the meeting. And I felt a certain way and other members of exec felt a certain way. We were all in a Huntsman GSR together and we were feeling lots of ways. And I think what I learned, and I was so cemented in my position at the beginning of when we met, and what I learned from the person who sort of disagreed with me is stance, and when he sort of articulated it in a way that I could really, listen to and get behind, I changed my mind about that thing, or I had like a much less extreme view. And I think what I really would try to facilitate as speaker is everyone should have a voice here. Everyone should have their minute or 30 seconds to speak. And it's really important that everyone really considers the voices of others. And I think
That's time.
Then
30 seconds.
30 seconds, yes.
Yeah, and I think just finally to add on and respond to all that is, at the end of the day, the way you demand or you seek respect is not necessarily being the loudest in the room, but also being the most informed. I think something that I was talking to Leo Solga with actually a few days ago is in the role of speaker, you're going to be given situations where you might feel a bit confused or lost. It's important that you're confident. You're confident that you're well informed of the bylaws and Robert's rules, and then project that onto the body, because only when that happens can you actually get the attention of the room and be able to steer a very efficient meeting.
Khalil?
My question is about feedback. We all have always like lots of opinions about UA or about GBM. So how will you handle feedback from like members in general?
So feedback on like maybe something that we did
Yeah, but like
Responding to that?
GBM's like procedure, like UA in general or the exact.
Sure, so I believe in terms of feedback, I guess, in the wisdom of the crowd. I believe that when you ask a lot of people for their opinion, typically in not always a yes or no response, but if there's, let's say, there's differing opinions on a decision that was made by me or whoever else made the decision. There's a yes side and there's a no side typically. And there's a conceptual debate that happens between who's right and wrong, and they'll kind of clash. And based on feedback of people's opinions of why yes and why no, you kind of carve out your own reasoning for what the actual choice should be. I believe this is theoretically how you make a decision of what's right or wrong. And I believe that when you have a lot of people's opinions in providing this, that's what actually makes the decision. So in short, I don't necessarily only believe in one person's feedback as much as bringing that
That's
one
fine.
person's feedback to everyone. And then
That's time.
Yeah, from being secretary, I've received a lot of feedback from my fellow exec members, from cabinet, and definitely from the UA body in general. I remember we gave a UA feedback form in the first semester, and we got a lot of interesting feedback, including people like not really knowing what my role was or what it was for. And I think there's a fine balance with feedback about like addressing it, but also making sure that everyone feels that way. And, you know, as speaker, I think I really want to sort of hone in and make more specific these feedback forms and distinguish them from cabinet and distinguish them from exec to make sure that the feedback we're getting is really specific, easily addressable, and also a majority of people feel this way. And we are, you know, making sure that the body feels heard. And as far as responding to feedback, I'm really open. I've changed a lot of things about how I've done, you know, previous roles here, and I've learned a lot. And I think feedback's a really good opportunity to grow.
Yeah, I think feedback is very important. I think at the end of the day, if we're to be speaker, we're representing the assembly, we have to know what the assembly wants. And I think something really important here, as opposed to just giving feedback beginning of semester or end of semester or mid-semester, we just have to have something that's constant and proactive. We want to be able to wake up every day and be like, what can I do better? So I mentioned this briefly in my speech, but just having this constant anonymous feedback form that's always on the agenda, always brought in open forum, telling members that, hey, if there's something you want to change, let us know. I think there's a lot of hesitation or wariness by, you know, feeling like there's an intersection between personal feelings and the role. So by having it be anonymous, we can always hear out the members. Another thing is by, you know, just going to different committee meetings, getting to know the assembly, making people feel comfortable enough to come talk to you, because only when we tell members and make them feel that, you know, they have a voice and we respect that and we want them to be able to shape the assembly with us, can we actually get feedback that can be implemented.
So I want to talk about sourdough bread real quick. And this is the difference between intention and just doing the same thing over. When you make sourdough bread, there's not one way to do it. You have to be very intentional with how you knead the dough, how you combine the ingredients, and you can't just do the same thing over and over. It's almost different every single time. When you're receiving feedback, you cannot make the same response every time. You also can't consistently respond to every piece of feedback. You have to be very intentional with how you respond to it, but also who you're responding to.
Sophie had a question.
As stated, and I guess the bylaws mentioned, a big part of the role is new member integration. So I'm just curious how you all plan to like uniquely integrate new members and what tangibles you want to see.
Yeah, so I talked about in my speech, I think I made the preceptorial slides this year. The preceptorial was wonderful. They were some of them were part of the new member education week slides. The problem is when you make slides and you talk at people, it's not very effective. And I also, a big goal of mine is to work on the UA community and continue to strengthen it. So my big idea is to have a scavenger hunt actually, where new members and returning members are paired together, and they're gonna go around to different offices and they'll have clues and try to figure out, you know, where these offices are on campus and what they do. I think that that's like a really big thing rather than reading a document or reading slides. And it'll help them get further integrated into the community, but also help them figure out, you know, what these offices do, where they are, and if they need support, where they can go to them. I didn't even know where some of the offices were during our CAB meetings at the beginning of this year, which I wish I did. So that information is absolutely super important.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid question, and I didn't really get to touch on this in the speech, but for education week, for example, I think we have something have a lot more comprehensive. I think this session we did a lot of work with, for example, resolutions or changing amendments. I think it's very important for members to be able to know what that is. So as opposed to just having the standard what the UA is, also making it very relevant to the goals of next exec or session, right? I also think that the retreat is very important in terms of integrating or so making them something very social. My freshman year, it was in Morris Arboretum, and it was just very fun. I think the idea of the scavenger hunt is amazing. I think it would be really cool to do that as well, and like Morris Arboretum, or just getting members to understand what's going on. I think also in terms of the first step in a member's UA journey is also being in a committee. So I think something that can improve on is having a bit more space in terms of like getting the members to understand what their committees are. A more free like shopping week, getting to see the different committees and what's going on. I think by giving members the space and as much information and making it as smooth and streamlined as possible, they can really understand what the UA is now.
So I'll address the elephant in the room. I am a new member, so I'm not gonna sit here and act like I have exact policies of how to do this, because I haven't been through it myself. However, what I will say is that the way that you get people involved, especially new members, is you get them to care about what they're doing. The only way for somebody to learn a subject, for example, I'm learning math right now, and I don't love math, so it makes it hard to learn. It makes the grade hard to get, but I do love a lot of the other courses that I'm in, making those classes easier. When you teach people to actually care about the work that they're doing, when you put them on projects that actually matter and not just give them the easy work originally, and then have them work their way up. When you put them in those high pressure situations, it makes them care about the work that they're doing. So when you put new members in environments where new members are not supposed to be typically, you push those boundaries, that's what gets them actually involved. And that's what gets them interested in learning about all of these other cabinet positions, interested in learning about how they can improve further, interested in being a part of committees, and interested in actually making a difference in this community.
And I think one of the also biggest things, and I think Rafa touched on this, about getting people to really be educated and want to be part of the UA is retreat. And new member education sort of we did, you know, 2 parts of that this year, but retreat is really, really important. And I've been to retreat. I've been to retreat 2 years in a row. I helped plan retreat this past year. And I think that's what keeps people coming. People being in retreat and people meeting really cool people, which everyone on the UA is, and getting to feel like a part of the community. And that's what's really important.
Simon had a question.
Thank you. I just kind of want to touch on a relatively smaller part, but influential of what the UA does, which is allocating the $3.1 million US. And we saw this year let's say the budget meetings, I don't think went as planned, considering there was, it was really long, it was very volatile, very hostile. And I think one large part of it is working with financial designates as well as working with the undergraduate assembly body. How do you all plan on managing a productive, informative, and transparent conversation within budget with both the financial designates as well as with the body?
No, I think that's a great question, and that's something that a lot of us experienced this session. I think something very important with budget is the idea of the speaker and the treasurer working together. I think getting a lot of things that cause tension or confusion within these GBMs done beforehand. So, meeting with the constituents in terms of the treasurer, and then also making sure that the amendments are discussed beforehand. In terms of internally within the body, I think one of the biggest issues we have is that confusion breeds tension. When we're in this budget meetings, a lot of people don't really know what's going on. And I think, yes, it's important that we educate members about what's happening in budget GBM beforehand, but also during budget GBM. For example, having a one-pager on, this is what we're doing today, this. We're going through the amendments and then discussing them, like just giving people an idea of what's going on, because not everyone can just go into the bylaws and see what's happening in budget GBM. So I think that clears all the confusion. I think also just being very strict on the time allocated. I think a lot of times we do follow the momentum in these situations. And I do understand it was very heightened, like the tensions this year, but if it's 3 minutes per question, it's 3 minutes per question. If we want to expand that, we have to go through the proper procedure.
That's time.
So to answer your question a little bit more specifically, you also asked about how you would handle the communication about these topics and how you'd kind of oversee people actually talking. I was on the economic development committee of my town back home. And I would say the #1 problem that we faced in getting anything done was ramble, jargon, fluff, and just nonsense. I've been a part of so many budget meetings where the entire conversation is talking about one piece of the budget. And it is like listening to politicians talk to each other for 3 hours. It's horrible. So tangibly, the communication needs to change. The communication needs to be more direct, succinct. In addition to that, I love debates. I love the concept of two people clashing over an idea because I believe that that breeds success. So in some way, to increase the amount of people who are involved in these processes, the amount of opinions that are going in, and again, resulting, and I actually think she had a great idea in talking about having those people also prepare beforehand. Preparation is the most important part of the success.
Yeah, to address the sort of volatile nature of the meetings, I think I sort of stood, apart in terms of, I really want to have goodwill with the financial designates. Whatever the budget is, to make sure the meetings are fair. And to make sure that everyone's getting the time allocated, including the financial delegates, and they're not feeling, and this goes back to education of the body before budget meetings. Like, this isn't the first time that the body should be learning about what SKU or SPEC does. They should be hearing about this from the beginning in new member education, because new member education is not just about the UA, it's about all of PSG and the entire school in general, because what we do affects everyone. And so when we learn about what SKU does, what SPEC does, we're way more informed when we go into the budget process. We don't have to ask as many questions. We don't have to make designees feel like we're grilling them. We don't have to be here till 1 a.m. every time. And that's huge. That's absolutely huge. And and to address with the body, not only education, but also making them feel comfortable, like that they can express themselves. And it was wonderful how much the freshmen talked about.
Yeah, I think these are all very wonderful ideas. I think somewhere I was caught when I was discussing was the idea that, having that one pager for the members of the assembly, but I think we've gone well. The financial institutions also matter. We have to be able to inform them about what's happening in the meeting. I don't know if any of you guys read the DP article, but one of the biggest things was just the confusion of what's happening in the meeting, right? And that confusion is not just resolved by educating members of the assembly, but also the financial constituents about what's happening during the GBMs. And I think that's the responsibility of the speaker, making sure the meetings are streamlined, clear, and everyone knows what's going on. And a part of that is maybe educating the financial constituents and the.
So we have like 25 seconds left, so we're gonna be moving on to Q&A for the general public. If we run out of questions from the general public, I will go back and start asking questions from elected members.
What do you mean by general public, like AMs, general public, or just general?
Like non-UA members.
Wait, also point of clarification. It should be any member, associate or accent.
Okay.
And I guess one word is preference given to members of the general public in this segment.
Yes. Okay. Starting now.
Any members of the public in the room who are not on UA? Do you guys have any questions?
I was really interested by what you said earlier about how you should be, when you don't know what's going on and you're asked a question, how you should be confident. But where does the line cross for you, like being confident and kind of like maybe making things up? Like where do you think like there should be the line?
No, I think, can I answer?
who responds?
I guess that was for everybody.
She started the last question, or you started, so.
Right, so 1 second, the question again. Yeah, so what you said earlier stood out to me about how when you don't know, when you ask a question, you don't know how to respond. You said that confidence is key, right? But I feel like sometimes, especially like in politics, right, you see politicians that don't know what they're talking about, right? So then they kind of start like gaslighting essentially. Where do you guys like stand in that position?
So I wouldn't say those are two separate concepts. I think they definitely are separated by many people, especially online, social media use it a lot. Sometimes confidence is confidence in the ability of not knowing, right? So if you ask me a question I don't know, sometimes I'm able to confidently say I don't know, but I'm confident in my solution to solving the problem. So if you ask me a question I don't know the answer to, my response would be, to be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question, but I can connect you with the person who does. Or, but I can go ask that person right now and I can come right back to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're referring to mostly for the speaker is in GBM when there's some sort of tension or some sort of technicality and you're not exactly sure what the bylaws say. I think first of all, the best way to address that is knowing the bylaws and Robert's rules. I think I've had a ton of experience this being secretary and sitting up there with Aiden. I've watched him make tough decisions. I've watched him make calls. I've learned a lot from him. And so obviously reviewing those will help ensure that that confusion does not happen. And I think in those moments of confusion, I think taking a moment to breathe and checking the bylaws and seeing what they say, and then having a confident decision about what ends up happening is best for everyone, and especially if it's on a procedural question.
So I will apologize if I wasn't very clear when I was talking about confidence. I think what I specifically meant was in terms of policy procedures. So when there is doubt about, for example, does this need a vote? Does this not need a vote? Does this need 2/3 of the assembly? Does this need a majority? Of course, first and foremost, the idea is being educated in the bylaws and Robert's rules, but there are situations where there's very meticulous situations where you have to know what to do with the policy, what to go on with the next motion. So of course, first of all, you have to check the bylaws and go back, but you do have to be confident when you finally settle on a decision. In terms of other aspects, like when you ask a question that you know about, I definitely do think that no, it shouldn't just be full confidence and fluff, because at the end of the day, you do have to be knowledgeable and know what you're talking about. So I will say that when I said confident, I meant more so about process and not necessarily about education or just kind of like fluffing where you're not sure.
I think that was a great response. I think it was more of a question.
So you're not taking your 30 seconds to respond? Any more of the general public? Okay, we can go back to UA. You had yours.
My question to you all is how do you foresee enforcing the rules of the UA, of the bylaws in these GBMs and communicating those rules in a clear and effective way so that no member feels unheard? Or so that no member feels like they asked a stupid question? That's just really the basics of the question. And how do you foresee yourself supporting an answer?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. I think it comes down to confidence, which I think Robin mentioned, and I think it also comes down to trust. And if you have the trust of the assembly and you have interacted with a lot of them and you build a community where people feel like when the speaker bangs the gavel and says like, you're done, like this, your speaking time is up, like no one feels like, oh my gosh, this was targeted to me personally. Like they feel like they trust the speaker, they know the speaker, they feel comfortable with the speaker, they feel comfortable in the body to like get cut off, be wrong, any of these things. So when it comes to enforcing the rules, I think the speaker really has to build the community and the trust and have the trust of the body to sort of be confident and, you know, assert themselves while also not offending anyone and not offending people's feelings. I also think speaker lists are really important, writing down who they see first so that everyone gets a fair chance and we're not going back to the same person time and time again. And that also increases trust in the speaker as well. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, so I think your question has, it's not twofold. First of all, the idea that, you know, the assembly has to have trust in what the speaker is saying, that they're well informed about the bylaws, Robert's rules, and what you mentioned. But then the second part is also the members themselves feeling as if they're able to access that knowledge and are at least informed about the basics of what's going on. I'm not saying all members should go through the 100 bylaws, right? No, it's more so knowing what are the most important ones. I think there are discussions about having a bylaw one-pager this session, maybe having that more cemented, or just an idea that there are these list of rules that if members are really confused, they can just refer to. Of course, they can always just come to the speaker, but I think it's two parts, just, you know, the speaker is educated and the members feel like they can be educated very easily about this and that they're in the loop and they're integrated on all the policies and the procedures that are.
Two parts, know the rules, enforce the rules. The way that you make people know the rules is you test them on. Very simply, to create tests on these bylaws, it's not simple to just say, here's a document, please read through it. 98% of you, maybe one person, will not read through. If you test them on it, they don't have a choice. Enforcing those rules. When you're enforcing those rules, people have to listen to those rules. What makes people want to listen? Actually knowing what's at stake. Okay, you have to not have some sort of punishment, but you have to have some incentive for people to actually listen and understand to what these rules actually mean. And it's important that you're enforcing them because just because someone knows what the rules are doesn't mean they know how it should be carried out every single time. So you have to be consistent. The real answer to the question is you have to enforce them the same for every person. But you also have to be very consistent in how you're having those conversations, what that conversation looks like. If two people make the same mistake and you address them separately, then those people are not going to follow the rules in the future because they're not.
Yeah, I think it's really great to ask people to read and know the bylaws, but most people learn the bylaws by being in GBM and learning from older members. I also think it's really helpful in a room where members of CAB and exec and returning members sit next to new members and AMs. Because if they're sitting next to them and they're learning from someone who's next to them, they're learning actively in the meeting. I think it's also really important for the speaker to give people grace and also understand that there's people who might be learning. I think.
Right?
Yeah, so you guys talked a lot about like retreat and activities that help the UA get closer, but with the lack of funding, I'm kind of wondering what you guys are planning to do, especially with people who actually get financial aid this year, how they're going to be fully incorporated into social events.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and this is something I touched on in my speech. I think at the end of the day, the point of the retreat is not necessarily to go, pay $40 and get the most expensive thing and have the best literal experience. It's more so about having this environment where you can facilitate social interactions and new members can get to know the old ones. And I think that's very feasible. That's very possible to choose cheaper, more accessible options. I mean, I mentioned this in my freshman fall, we went to Morris Arboretum. That's fair. I think that's free for Penn students to go to. It's just transportation costs, which is not gonna go be up to $30. So I definitely do think there's options that we can go through to engage and have members be sociable without having to spend too much, because we don't want to exclude anyone or certain populations by having these really expensive situations. I do think that retreat is definitely something that we can make cheaper and prioritize the essence of, and like the members interacting with each other as opposed to actual.
So I'm really not trying to play devil's advocate, but I don't believe in retreats at all. I think that the people that are meant to actually bond on these retreats, like the reason they're created, are the ones that don't end up going because they don't feel like they're close enough to those people to bond on retreat. I'm sure it can work. I'm not saying it hasn't in the past. I obviously haven't been part of the ones here. But I think a more tangible way to actually solve this problem, to actually have these social events, is to do them after or before these meetings. As you can see, like people will build up in the hallway before, we'll have all these discussions before or after. I'm sure it's going to be the same. So having events before and after these meetings is actually what gets people to come together because they're already together. So it's not necessarily creating new things as much as using what we have now to build on that social environment itself.
Yeah, I mean, I love retreat. I've been to every retreat. I've been every session I've been a part of, and I want to do more socials. I think impromptu socials are a great idea, but then also thinking about financial aid, that comes from revenue. And where do we get revenue? Airport shuttles. And I've experienced marketing with airport shuttles, and I know that the new secretary will do a wonderful job. And hopefully by boosting ticket sales, we can accommodate people who have financial aid concerns. And I think that's one way to get amazing, great revenue. But yeah, also like thinking about a barbecue or a pool party locally for retreat, and thinking about more impromptu socials, like people having dinners together in dining halls, are all really important as things that the speaker really should facilitate. These impromptu socials, I also agree, work to build part of the community in smaller groups. And I also think doing things like intramural sports leagues between the committees would also be a great idea to have people from different committees meet each other rather than these large group socials.
Well, yeah, I think at the end of the day, these are all great answers, and I think that the idea is that retreat is a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter for assembly members to know each other, but at the end of the day, something that's what you mentioned. And it's something that is social, is something that is social. And it's up to the speaker to facilitate systemic and like just structure socials overall. I mentioned this, having potlucks, having picnics outdoors, office hangouts. And again, I think there's a lot of work being done right now to manage the current budget cuts. Maybe the alumni gift fund that we discussed, or I'm sure that it's gonna be.
Naya. Julia, you just recently returned as Secretary of Alpha League Service Coordinator, Andrew, you are new here. Could you all speak to something from your previous roles or something that you bring outside for you, Andrew? That speaks to your ability to handle the administrative organizational and technological skill that necessitates those roles.
Am I first? No.
And
I think so.
it's Andrew.
Yeah, my principal in high school hated me. He hated me so much because anything that he wouldn't let me do, I would go directly to the school board and I would have them vote on it, and it got done a lot of the time. I have a lot of experience dealing with administrative figures that I don't like. And obviously I respect these figures. I'm not disrespectful in any of these meetings. I don't assert myself in any way, but at the end of the day, they're also people, and it's important to not be fazed by this pressure, not be fazed by, at the end of the day, they're also people, and we all have our different goals, we all have our different beliefs, but what actually matters is the student body, not what some random dude thinks. So I care about the student body, and I'm not gonna let anybody really stand in the way of me pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, I was a secretary. I've done a lot of administrative tasks. I've done attendance, minutes, all of those things. But I've also done some of the, sort of more speaker-esque tasks like retreat payments, merge payments, helping make slides, all those things I've had experience with as part of exec. And I know when to do them because I've watched Aiden do them. And knowing when to do them and understanding that a lot of them actually need to be done in the summer, way before the session really even kickstarts in the fall is really important, and knowing sort of like the sequence of events that happens is really important so that when we get back in the fall can deal with the big things like the resolutions and the platform that the president and vice president have, rather than simply just administrative tasks or planning retreat. That all can be done in the summer.
Yeah, so I think you guys hear a lot about legal services, but it is a bit of a black box, but let me give you some insights. We get hundreds of emails from graduate students, undergraduate students, lease dispute, people going to court. It's very high stakes, very tense. The role had me meeting with Katie Bonner, with off-campus witnesses, with ISSS, with even Penn Law. And in addition to all of that, we faced a 25% budget cut this session. Regardless, we were able to manage, and actually we were able to decrease consultation costs from $112 to $100 per student. So that's just to say that with legal services, it was a lot of just dealing with ad hoc situations, being able to manage these little technicalities, keeping a constant eye on the inbox, managing all the Excel sheets, communicating with different branches, and just being able to deal with very tense situations. I think I'm gonna take a lot of the thing of like keeping track with the small details, being able to manage under stress to the speaker role.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're trying to prove to these people, to administration, that this is actually what's best for the people. The best way to show that is from the people. So gathering surveys, getting actual data is undisputable. Getting information from people who actually want these changes to be made is what's actually gonna make that difference. It proves this. I hate to keep referring to the wisdom of the crowd, but it's honestly what actually makes these decisions work.
Silva.
Wow, damn, okay.
I'm so weak smiled. I'm sorry.
My bad. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the responsibilities of the speaker when it comes to community, to administrative work, etc. I think an undervalued role of the speaker is their ability to appoint people to various advisory boards that UA member sits on during their time in the 54th session. And I guess I was curious as to your experience working on advisory boards, or I guess working with administrators on increasing student input in environments where they're not traditionally seen.
Yeah, so external seats, appointing students to external seats is a big part of the speaker role, and also a wonderful experience for members to be on the UA. I've actually helped members of my own committee, AI, get their external seats, the ones that they asked me about. And I've been on a number of advisory boards, including SETLI, which I created, PVP, Penn Climate, just to name a few. And the best part about it is that you get to hear what a specific office is doing at Penn in wonderful detail and get to contribute your experience, not just on the UA, but as a student in Penn, right directly to administrators. You also get to form a close bond to administrators and sort of have this relationship with them that you can facilitate throughout your time at Penn. And if you have a project idea, you can better sort of get them to address it. So I think in terms of speaker and helping appoint them to external seats, that's a big priority. And that needs to be done, at the end of the summer, early part of the school year, so that people can really get that wonderful experience about being an advisory board, because I really believe that's key to a UA.
Yeah, so I think that's two parts. First of all, the idea of how important external seats are. I think a lot of people are already on external seats. So one of the first things determining is who wants to continue being on those seats, because we have a lot of people who are leaving, people who want to change to external seats. So the first part of that is determining who wants to stay on, and also educating new members on what these external branches are and the seats they want to be on. So we can also facilitate at the beginning of semester who wants to be on what. In terms of personal experience, I am on ISTAR, Justice Table for Advocacy and Relations. I do think it's an incredible opportunity for the members to practice one of the first and most primary responsibilities of the UA, which is advocacy. Being able to advocate for students, for certain populations, being able to directly work with these administrators and learn from them. Another point Julia mentioned is kind of just getting inspiration for projects and being able to communicate what these bodies are saying to the UA and to the broader student population. Personal experience, transit advisory board. I will not lie, before coming to, joining DHG, I didn't know much about transit. I'm an international student. Saudi doesn't really have public transit. Just being on tap for this session, I know so much about SEPTA, so much about the transit, and I think that's a great one.
I have a friend who's also a freshman who's on one of these boards. And I can tell you that he just really loves what he does. And I think it's very, not easy, but it's important to be able to tell who on these boards and who you're appointing actually cares about the work that they're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's essentially you're doing specialized work. And the ability to actually do meaningful specialized work has to do with if you actually care about that topic. I feel that I'm someone who is very accurately able to read people in that way specifically, spend a lot of time with people and talking to people because of this. And I think that I'm definitely equipped to be able to fulfill that process. And I also think that is the most important type of person to fulfill that role.
Yeah, I mean, I would say about this session, most people were not on external seats, or there was like confusion about how to get on them. And I think one thing about that is like once, you know, the speaker sort of makes their spreadsheet about who's gonna go where, and what external seat they want, because there's a ranking form. There needs to be communication about like, how do I get on this? Who is the contact? How do I email them? And that's part of new member education, and that should come from the speaker. I also think it's important for the speaker to encourage their committee directors to check in with their committees to sort of figure out like, oh, how's your external seat going? How's your updates? Maybe you want to do a discussion paper on your most recent meeting, all things like that.
Okay. We have a minute and 56 seconds and I see a lot of hands.
Motion to accept.
That motion makes sense.
Second.
Okay, perfect. And then, wait. We have to vote.
Like, as
Okay, how many people are in favor of sending it?
This whole link, it looks so good.
Okay, yeah. I'll let y'all have it. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Reference will be at 8 minutes. Okay. David.
Yeah, so a very important part of being speaker is maintaining the integrity of the member of the assembly, and also, y'all have talked extensively about, educating, the bylaws. That being said, what are y'all's favorite bylaws and why?
Okay. I will say probably bylaw number 94 about Philadelphia Student Government Association. The reason why is I got to see this being actively worked on by Leo Solga and Aiden Carroll, hearing about all these universities that we are meeting with, seeing these photos, wondering why Villanova is there because it's a Philadelphia Student Government Association. I think it was just really cool to see that, as Penn, we're collaborating with all these other student governments. I think that's very important because at the end of the day, that's how we check ourselves and see our standards and if we're up to par with all these other institutions. But yeah, I think it's a very cool part of the bylaw because you see that, it affects so many other things, not just the body itself.
I don't know any bylaws, and that is a really big problem. But that's a really big problem that I came to this session and I don't know the bylaws, which is why the actual decision that needs to be made is making people learn these bylaws, which, like I said before, is something that should be tested on before you get here. You should have that locked down. You should understand what you're doing here, why you're here, who you are as a person, and what you're going to contribute to. She mentioned before that it's important to know which bylaws are most important. Which bylaws are most important varies from person to person. It's important that you can make those decisions before you come here, so you can actually bring your genuine opinion to contribute to this process.
Yeah, my favorite bylaw is the one that establishes the secretary and what it does. I think this is like my favorite. It's been an honor of a lifetime to be the secretary for the 53rd session and serve on an exec and a cabinet with on a body with all of you. And so no matter what happens tonight or my career in the UA and forever and whatever, I will always have loved being secretary. And so I'm so glad that it's a role and I got to have been it for a second.
Okay, honorary mention. It's bylaw 80 something. It's about how members before voting on a resolution or amendment, we have to check if members have any interest with pro-profit organizations. I think that's pretty cool because we're discouraging lobbying or corruption in the UA and associations. And that's important. As a Saudi, I will say that is very important.
That's next to your not clear.
Okay, so Eddie, Eddie.
Please keep my scholarship.
I think we heard this, kind of touched on by Aiden during the speech, in that not every speaker can be perfect. You're trying to want to be able to build, from one speaker to the next.
I think so, given that, I would be very interested in understanding, when you guys particularly think about from this past session, something that you did not, something that you did not think about, either the speakership or the conduct of the speakership, and that you want to see improved on, and what you want to like act upon differently during your speakership. Because I think you would never want, I guess, the one speaker to be the same for any like 2 sessions in a row, right? You always want to be different, so it might be improvement. But something that you didn't appreciate, you didn't like this past session, and you want to be able to improve on.
So when Musa was giving his speech, he said something that stuck with me a little bit. And it was that we need to push the boundaries of what we do here. We need to make decisions that people don't usually make. And it comes from a quote. I don't remember who said it, but it was, if you want to achieve what others don't achieve, you have to do what others don't do. And I believe that as somebody who literally just entered this room, I'm trying to show that we're going to do things hopefully a lot different here. We're going to, like, this session is not going to be just a 54. This session is going to be somewhere where people actively contribute. It's going to be an environment where people can actually collaborate, but it's going to be something that people actually can talk about when they leave. I think a lot of the reasons of why you all are here is you want to say that you changed this school. Is this fair to say? Like, by a raise of hands, how many of you want to say that? By the time that you're gone, you want to say that you've actually made a difference. And I think, yeah.
Time.
Yeah, I think I first want to say that, I serve with the speaker as heads internal, and I really respect Aiden and everything that he's done and have loved serving with him. I think the biggest thing with speaker is that whatever happens in this room, it is about it dictates how you feel about the UA, about the work that you're doing. And I want you to feel about me, if I was the speaker, that not only do you respect me and I know the bylaws super well, but I'm also a person that you thinks the UA is a better community, makes people feel like they can talk to me outside of GBM about anything really. And I've interacted with a lot of you guys at socials, outside GBM for coffee, and a lot of you guys are my friends. And I want to be able to say that. I want to be able to have a community that feels like this. When you walk in here, you are excited. You feel like this is a community you want to be part of, and you want to work as a team with everyone else to make this school a better place.
Yeah, so I think the biggest pro of the UA this session is also its biggest challenge. The sheer increase in engagement and momentum. It gets so easy for us to start this discussion and just follow with the energy. We start asking questions about palms of the high rises, then we go for a 10-minute discussion about elevators not working. I think this is something that Carol had to deal with, the idea of, being able to know when to cut conversation, when to let things continue. And I think that is something that I really do want to focus on, highlighting efficiency, being able to tell when a discussion has just gone too far, it's getting redundant. I think engagement is very important. I think engagement is even more important when we know where to put it. So that's just definitely something that I will want to focus on.
She actually added something that I think is very important. And I'll kind of say it my own way, but I was going to say something very similar in the sense of a lot of fluff needs to be cut. I mentioned it before of how, I'd be part of these financial decision-making processes. And most of the discussion that happens, especially in these kind of board meetings, is just a lot of fluff. It's a lot of political jargon. It's a lot of someone explaining a little bit too much into a process because they think the louder they are, the more they talk makes them a more qualified speaker. But I can read without even being a part of the past session that needs to change. Just by being in this room today, I can say that's the biggest difference that needs to occur, is less fluff, less jargon, and more actual decision.
Okay, we are at the end. Is there another motion? Okay, bless. Okay. Sorry, so sorry. I'm so sorry. Love the questions, love you all. Okay. Is there a motion to send into executive session so we can start doing deliberations?
Motion to.
All those in favor? All right, perfect.